Everywhere you look across nerd culture and pop culture websites, social media, and whatever else, you're gonna notice that everybody has an opinion on the MCU post Avengers Endgame. Good or bad, there are tons of opinions. I, of course, have one that's a somewhat mixed bag, but most of it I have enjoyed. But one thing while looking over the recent MCU and looking back at what made phases 1, 2, and 3 so special and why they worked, really jumped out to me right out the gate once I looked at it from a distance. And this is the fact that post-Endgame MCU lacks a main character. And that's ultimately what's not driving people to want to see everything, because we don't know who we're supposed to follow. So when I say, who is the main character of MCU Phase 1? You're going to probably come up with two names. It's going to be Iron Man, Tony Stark, and Captain America, Steve Rogers. This was further amplified very quickly after a handful of films with the Avengers. They made it very clear. This is the story of following Tony Stark and his view of the Marvel Universe, and following Captain America and his view of the Marvel Universe. Captain America was the main character in the Avengers, after he is brought back from being frozen and he doesn't know a whole lot. So through his eyes, the Avengers, the concepts in that film are introduced. All the characters get a quick introduction to new viewers who literally jumped on the Marvel bandwagon with the Avengers, which is why the film became so big and spawned pretty much everything we're talking about today, right? It was due to the Avengers and the huge success of that film that nobody saw coming. But when I then look at now, we still got to kind of look at the past, right? So when I say, who's the main character of Phase 2? Well, you're going to say Captain America, because again, the Winter Soldier film. You're going to say Tony Stark, because Iron Man 3, and then his through line to the other Avengers. And chances are, you're probably going to say the Guardians of the Galaxy, because again, they joined the fray in the cosmic way, and they're connected straight to Thor, and they started to build out this One Direction big story that's coming. When I say Phase 3, you're now looking at characters that are becoming a little bit more newer, right? You're looking at, okay, we still got Cap and Iron Man, and they're doing supporting roles, but you got a couple of newcomers, but these newcomers are helped with the advantage of having these heavy hitters and big timers like Captain America now, and Iron Man, and even the Hulk in supporting roles, and Thor on his third film, who's now big. So you got all these characters that are able to lift the newer characters like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man to a level where a couple years into the MCU, the previous characters were, right? After they got that significant boost. We get to Phase 4. Tell me who is the main character. You can't tell me who the main character is because we don't have one. Now, obviously, there's a couple reasons we don't. For one, we know that Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther was supposed to be the replacement to Tony Stark. He was going to be the new tech guy with all the advanced technology and everything on his side and his corner, but that's no longer possible. So the film, the follow-up to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, got a substantial delay and had to change directions. Is it Captain America, the new Captain America? Well, it might be, but he's only appeared in one project to lead it. That's a TV series. And the next time he's showing up in an actual film, it will be well over 5 years since the ending of Endgame. So he clearly wasn't our main character. Is it Captain Marvel? Maybe, but she hasn't had that much time to be in the spotlight as well. So what we've had is Phase 4 essentially setting up multiple new characters that audiences haven't resonated with because, one, the release of the films, two, taking so long to get these characters out there in various projects, and three, a middling reception to a lot of what's been happening because they've essentially devalued some of their supporting characters. Now, if you ask me, I would say, well, the main character of Phase 4 going forward is probably Doctor Strange. Unfortunately, he didn't appear in WandaVision because they took that out. In Spider-Man No Way Home, he was relegated to being stuck in another dimension for a majority of the film. And then in Multiverse of Madness, his stakes are in the multiverse, not in the MCU proper. So he's literally been removed from the main MCU, and they find a way to sideline him. You could say Thor, but Thor has just been out there doing his own thing. They brought in Jane, she's gone. Could it be Loki as the main character? Maybe, but nobody knows he exists. And the main Loki is dead. Could it be Shuri as Black Panther? Maybe, but she hasn't showed up in other projects. Is it Ant-Man? It could be, but we know they intended to kill him at the ending of Quantumania, then they reshot the ending, so clearly he hasn't showed up in other projects because they've gone in a different direction. Is it Spider-Man? He could be, but his mind is wiped, and he only shows up in his own movies and big crossovers, so he can't be our eyes through everything because he's literally not able to be due to contract obligations stemming from a Sony agreement. So what we have in front of us is essentially, imagine if Phase 1 did Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, The Incredible Hulk, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But imagine if no Avengers film ever happened and all these films were just happening at once, but nobody was crossing over or doing anything. They were just saying, don't worry, something is coming. You're already like 10 projects in, but nothing's happened. And you don't know who the main character is, but you've taken 5 years to establish these 10 characters and films. So do you guys see what I'm saying? I hope I'm explaining this right. Marvel Studios, unfortunately, due to 1, a pandemic, due to 2, having to space things out, 3, production schedules and everything being delayed, and various shutdowns, has found themselves in what was supposed to be only a 2 to 3 year phase. Remember that. When it was announced, that initial wave of projects, which included Armor Wars and Ironheart and everything, that was supposed to be 3 years max. We were right now supposed to be getting the last of that, and literally next year already onto those next chapters. But everything had to get stretched out, everything was delayed, everything fell apart, plans changed, productions changed, and well, we don't have a central character to focus on because they can't possibly have one because of all the circumstances. So people are losing interest because we don't have a Tony Stark anymore. We don't have a Captain America. And sure, it could have been Shang-Chi. A lot of people love that character. But where has Shang-Chi been? Nowhere. We haven't seen him. Like, we've seen more references to Kingo from the Eternals because they're slapping his posters everywhere. But there's literally no through-line main character. And I think that's unfortunate. The closest we get to one is Nick Fury, but, what of it? We have Moon Knight. You could watch that, and it might not even take place in the MCU. You don't know. That's how it could play out. How about Werewolf by Night? One of my favorite projects. Is Jack Russell going to ever show up again? Is he going to be our eyes? I mean, that would work because he's so confused, right? And he doesn't know what's going on. But again, we're at the same issue. Too much time has passed. We don't have a main character, and people are losing interest because people can't wait up until, well, here's the big bad now. Obviously, Jonathan Majors, but now everybody knows about him, and they're crossing over, and projects are coming out in a flow and a manner that's like the old MCU. We don't have that anymore. So I see exactly what the problem here is. The post-Endgame problem is we don't have main characters to follow the same way we did back then.